Okay, so picture this. You're walking back to your car after dinner kind of late, and your keys are in your hand, and you glance over your shoulder. It's just a habit, right?
Mhm.
But that unease that you get sometimes, that prickle of fear, what if it's not just nerves?
You know, for about a third of all murder victims, the killer wasn't some stranger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was someone they knew often, very intimately.
That's a chilling thought, and it kind of gets to the heart of why we're doing this deep dive today.
Exactly.
We're looking into two cases.
Where love took a very dark turn.
Yeah, and we really want to try to understand, those red flags.
Those warning signs.
The things that, in hindsight, we think, oh, that's so obvious. How could they have missed that?
Right.
But when you're in it, it can be really hard to see.
Absolutely.
And we want to try to unpack what makes it so hard to leave.
Even when you know that love has turned dangerous.
Right, exactly.
And it can happen to anyone.
Yeah. So our first case takes us to Dallas, Texas,
Okay.
where we meet Brenda Delgado,
Mm-hmm.
and her dream of becoming a dentist turned into a nightmare.
Yes, it did.
A nightmare of obsession and murder.
So back in 2012, Brenda met Ricky Piagua on a dating app.
Okay.
He was a dermatology resident.
Got it.
And at first, it was like a whirlwind romance.
Like out of the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
They moved in together. Brenda enrolled in dental hygienist school.
Oh, wow.
There was a promise ring.
Uh-huh.
But you know that picture-perfect facade started to crack pretty quickly.
Yeah, and those cracks can be so subtle at first.
Right.
So Ricky eventually broke things off with Brenda. But instead of moving on, she became fixated.
She did. She started orchestrating these chance encounters with him, like popping up at his coffee shop or the gym.
Right, right.
But it went deeper than that.
Oh, really?
She actually secretly used his passwords to track his location.
What?
Yeah, and monitor his communications.
Wow, that's getting into some serious digital abuse territory.
It is. It's a chilling truth about digital abuse. Abusers can weaponize technology,
Right.
turning everyday tools into instruments of control.
Yeah, it's scary to think about how easy it is to exploit that stuff.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant about online privacy and security, especially in our relationships.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially now, it's just getting easier and easier to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is already pretty bad. But things escalated even further when Ricky started dating a woman named Kendra Hatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And Kendra was a dentist.
A dentist?
Now, remember, becoming a dentist, this was Brenda's dream.
Right?
So not only was Ricky gone, but now he was with someone who represented everything that Brenda wanted.
Yeah, it's like a double blow.
Right.
And Brenda's jealousy and possessiveness just went into overdrive.
I can imagine.
It became warped and dangerous. She started talking about wanting to harm both Ricky and Kendra.
Oh, no.
And these weren't just idle threats. This was a dangerous obsession that was completely spiraling out of control.
That's heartbreaking because this is often the point where friends and family might start to notice something's wrong,
Right.
but they might not know how to intervene.
Yeah, exactly.
So Brenda went a step further.
Okay.
She actually enlisted two people to help her carry out a murder plot.
Oh, wow.
She recruited a woman named Crystal Cortez, who was a dental office receptionist.
Okay.
And then there was Christopher Love, a man with a criminal record.
Okay.
And together, they started stalking Kendra relentlessly.
They even approached random men on the street.
Really?
Yeah, to see if they'd be willing to shoot someone for money.
That is so disturbing.
It is. It really shows how far gone Brenda was.
Yeah, it's like that saying love and hate are two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how those lines can blur
Yeah.
when someone feels betrayed and rejected.
Right.
And sadly, their plan worked. Christopher shot Kendra in the head as she was arriving home from work.
Oh my gosh.
He stole her purse and left her to die in the parking garage of her apartment complex.
That's awful.
It is. And what happened next is almost as disturbing. Brenda, with like a calculated coldness,
Uh-huh.
manipulated Ricky into relying on her for support after Kendra's death.
Really?
She offered to bring him groceries. She was a shoulder to cry on, all while maintaining her alibi for the night of the murder.
Wow, so she was playing the grieving friend.
Yes, exactly.
That's chilling.
And it makes you wonder, does this type of calculated manipulation suggest a specific psychological profile?
That's a fascinating question.
Right?
And one that criminologists and forensic psychologists grapple with all the time.
Sure.
It's tempting to try to fit individuals like Brenda into neat categories.
Right.
But the reality is much more complex.
Okay.
What we can say is that this behavior points to a high degree of narcissism,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of empathy,
Right.
and a chilling ability to compartmentalize.
So they create this separate reality in their minds where their actions are justified.
Exactly.
Even necessary.
And that makes them all the more dangerous.
It does.
Thankfully, police investigations eventually uncovered the truth.
Okay, good.
They arrested Christopher and Crystal,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them implicated Brenda as the mastermind.
Wow. Brenda fled to Mexico, but she was eventually extradited back to the U.S. to face justice.
And what happened?
She was found guilty and sentenced to life without parole.
Wow.
Christopher also received a life sentence,
Okay.
and Crystal received a 35-year sentence.
So justice was served.
Yeah, but at an unimaginable cost.
Right,
Kendra's life was stolen.
right.
Her future was completely erased because of Brenda's obsession and her violence.
It's a stark reminder that intimate partner violence can have devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
Not only for those directly involved in the relationship,
Right.
but for innocent people caught in the crossfire.
It really makes you wonder, what warning signs did the people around Brenda miss?
Right.
And could anything have been done to prevent this tragedy?
Those are the questions that haunt us,
For sure.
and we'll continue to explore those as we delve into our next case. Kendra's case really highlights a chilling truth about this kind of violence.
What's that?
It often starts so subtly with seemingly harmless behaviors. Little things that escalate over time.
Yeah, and as we move to our next case,
Okay.
I think we're going to see how those early warning signs, those red flags,
Right.
they can be easily missed, especially in the context of young love.
Absolutely.
Our second case takes us to Philadelphia,
Okay.
and it involves a seemingly ordinary high school romance that turned deadly. So we have Morgan McCaffrey and Gilbert Newton III,
Okay.
and they were both teenagers when they started dating.
Right. Typical high school sweethearts.
Yeah, you think at first, oh, it's probably just typical teenage drama.
Right. The arguments, the jealousy, maybe a little possessiveness.
Yeah, but underneath the surface, there was this darker pattern emerging.
Right.
And sometimes those patterns are harder to spot when you're young.
Oh, absolutely.
You're still figuring out what's normal, what's healthy in a relationship.
Exactly.
And unfortunately for Morgan, the COVID-19 lockdowns
Oh, yeah.
exacerbated the situation.
Yeah, for sure. We saw a global surge in domestic violence rates during that time.
Right.
Because you had this isolation and this intense stress,
It's like a pressure cooker for a lot of people.
Exactly. And for Morgan, it meant being trapped with Gilbert cut off from her support network,
Oh, no.
while his behavior became increasingly controlling and abusive.
It's just a stark reminder that external factors, like even a global pandemic,
Right.
can intensify those abusive tendencies,
Absolutely.
making it even harder for the victims to escape.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
So what started as maybe some verbal jabs, some controlling behavior, how quickly did it escalate for Morgan?
Well, Gilbert's verbal abuse escalated to threats and eventually physical violence.
Oh, wow.
He would belittle her,
Uh-huh.
try to isolate her from her friends and family, monitor her every move.
Classic signs of an abuser trying to exert power and control.
Exactly.
And that control, it often extends beyond the victim themselves, doesn't it?
Right.
Like with Brenda, she manipulated Ricky after the murder. And here we see Gilbert involving his own mother.
Oh, wow.
So Gilbert's mother pressured Morgan to stay in contact with him,
Really?
even though she was clearly afraid and trying to distance herself.
That's awful. It's a common tactic for abusers,
All right.
They use other people, even family members,
Right.
to try to maintain their grip on their victims.
It's like this web of manipulation
Goodness.
that can be incredibly difficult to break free from.
Right.
And tragically, despite Morgan's attempts to end the relationship, Gilbert's rage and his possessiveness,
Yeah.
they only intensified.
It's so sad. Morgan tried to break up with Gilbert multiple times,
Oh.
and he would respond with death threats
Okay.
and these increasingly disturbing messages.
And was he using technology to track her as well?
He was using a photo sharing app
Oh.
that she intentionally had not shared with him,
Wow.
which means he was actively stalking her online.
This is another chilling example of how abusers exploit technology.
Right.
It's not just about tracking someone's location.
It's about invading their privacy, monitoring their every move, and creating this constant sense of fear and anxiety.
It's psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
And sadly,
Uh,
that fear led Morgan to agree to meet Gilbert one last time.
oh, no.
He lured her to a secluded parking lot.
Huh?
And driven by this possessiveness and this rage,
Yeah.
he brutally stabbed her to death.
That's horrible.
It's a reminder that breaking up with an abuser can
Yeah.
be the most dangerous time.
It can be because that need for control is so strong
Right.
that they would rather see their victim dead
Right.
than free.
So what happened to Gilbert?
Gilbert confessed to the murder and was sentenced to life in prison.
Okay.
Morgan's family was obviously devastated by their loss,
I can only imagine.
but they channeled their grief into action.
That's good.
They established this organization called Morgan's Light.
Okay.
It's a nonprofit that's dedicated to educating teens and parents about domestic violence prevention.
It's a powerful way to honor her memory and to try to prevent other families from experiencing this unimaginable pain.
Right.
But it also begs the question, what can we as a society do differently?
Yeah.
What are we missing here?
That's the million-dollar question. We've seen how both Brenda and Gilbert, despite their different ages and backgrounds,
Right.
exhibited similar patterns of controlling and abusive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And both cases highlight this dangerous misconception
What's that?
that abuse is always physical.
Right. It's not always black eyes and bruises.
Exactly.
It can be a lot more subtle, like with Brenda using technology to track Ricky,
Right.
or Gilbert isolating Morgan from her friends.
It's so important to broaden our understanding of what abuse actually looks like.
For sure. And we need to challenge those societal norms
Right.
that prioritize being nice or forgiving over personal safety and well-being.
Absolutely. It's about drawing those boundaries.
Right.
And saying, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, it's like we're almost conditioned to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Right.
to excuse bad behavior.
Right. Especially in romantic relationships.
Exactly. But when does that politeness, that hesitation to rock the boat become dangerous?
That's the tough question. That's where the conversation gets uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's a conversation we need to have.
Absolutely.
Because both Ricky and Morgan felt pressured to be nice to their exes,
Right.
even when those exes were exhibiting these really dangerous behaviors.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
But we need to empower people to set boundaries,
Absolutely.
to say no
Yes.
without guilt or fear.
For sure.
And we need to create a culture where seeking help,
Right.
whether you're a victim or someone concerned about a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
isn't seen as a weakness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline,
Yeah.
Love is Respect, and Morgan's Light play such a vital role.
Right.
They provide confidential support, guidance, and resources
Yeah.
for those affected by abuse.
That's great.
They can help you create safety plans,
Okay.
connect with local shelters, and even access legal aid if you need it.
It's about giving people the tools and support they need to break free from these toxic patterns.
Right.
And shifting that conversation from why did they leave to how can we help them get to a place of safety.
Exactly.
So important.
And remember, abuse can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter your gender, your age, your socioeconomic status.
Right.
These cases are stark reminders that the most dangerous person in someone's life might be someone they once loved and trusted.
Absolutely.
That's the hard truth.
We've talked about the red flags, the patterns of abuse, the resources that are available.
Right.
But ultimately, preventing these tragedies requires a fundamental shift in our attitudes and beliefs.
It does. We have to change the way we think about these things.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from Brenda's calculated scheme to Morgan's tragic story.
Right.
And both cases, I think they raise a really critical question. How do we move from awareness to action? How do we create a world where these stories aren't just cautionary tales, but they're catalysts for real change?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I think it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to have these open and honest conversations about healthy relationships, consent, and the warning signs of abuse. And we need to start young.
Right.
It's not about scaring people.
Right.
It's about giving them the knowledge they need to protect themselves.
And it's not just about talking to potential victims, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about engaging everyone,
Well, no.
including potential abusers.
Right.
We have to dismantle those harmful ideas about masculinity that equate control and dominance with strength.
Exactly.
We need to teach young people, especially boys, about respect, empathy, and healthy ways to express their emotions.
Absolutely.
And create a culture where seeking help for anger management or relationship issues isn't stigmatized, where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
That's so important.
And when we talk about these issues,
Yeah.
we need to be really mindful of the language that we use.
Right.
We can't blame victims
No.
or make excuses for abusers. Phrases like, why didn't they just leave?
Right.
Or they must have done something to provoke them. Those just perpetuate the cycle of violence and silence.
Exactly. It's about shifting the focus
Yeah.
from questioning the victim's actions to holding the abuser accountable.
Right. Actions have consequences.
I do.
And those who choose violence need to be held responsible.
Absolutely.
And of course, we need to support the organizations that are working tirelessly to combat domestic violence.
Right.
Like the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Love is Respect. Morgan's Light.
Yes. They provide vital resources for victims, their families, and even abusers seeking help.
And these organizations rely on donations, volunteers,
Right.
and just spreading awareness about their work.
For sure.
But we can also advocate for stronger laws and policies that protect victims. We can contact our elected officials, support legislation that addresses domestic violence, and speak out against any attempts to weaken those protections.
We have to use our voices
Yes,
to demand change.
change doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't.
But each conversation, each act of support, each push for better policies, it contributes to a safer future.
It does. It's like a ripple effect.
Right.
Even small actions can make a difference.
So if you see something that seems off in a relationship,
Right.
don't be afraid to speak up.
Trust your gut.
Yeah. If you're concerned about a friend or family member, reach out.
Reach out.
If you're struggling in your own relationship, seek help.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
we want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Both Ricky and Morgan, they felt pressured to be nice to their exes, even when they felt unsafe.
Right.
And it's a chilling reminder that societal pressures can sometimes make it harder to set boundaries or seek help.
They can.
So we challenge you to think about this. What societal pressures might prevent people from prioritizing their safety in relationships?
That's a good question.
It is. And more importantly, how can we as a society create an environment where speaking up and seeking help are met with support, not judgment?
That's what we need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes. Thank you.
We hope it sparked some reflection and most importantly, inspired you to take action, however small.
Right.
Remember, there is help available. You are not alone.
Never forget that.
And above all, trust your instincts. Your safety and well-being are paramount.
Always.
Never hesitate to reach out for support if you need it.
Please do.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
We'll see you next time.